Your business will grow at the rate you do. That's one of the quotes from my guest today, Jahmaal Marshall. And I just love that quote. He talks a lot about emotional intelligence, and EQ is something that's written about a lot and talked a lot about, but it's sometimes difficult to decode. And Jahmaal just does a wonderful job of talking about emotional intelligence, why you can continue to develop it all the way up into your 90s, and how important it is for you to have very rich, loving relationships in your personal life, and how you can have very effective and mutual reciprocal relationships in the workplace that benefit both you as a leader and your team because you operate with emotional intelligence. It's a great episode. Jahmaal is just a wonderful dude. What you see is what you get, and a guy you may want to work with. So check this out. Jahmaal is a corporate wellness advocate and leader who reshapes work cultures to prioritize mental health with a 12-year track record. He equips executives and HR professionals with strategies to combat burnout and stress, teaching them to have more energy and increase focus and drive to thrive professionally and personally. Through consulting and coaching programs, Jahmaal addresses deep-seated challenges like constant stress, feelings of doubt, worry, and that work-life imbalance that we're always trying to get back into balance. His solutions foster healthier work environments, yielding more present, energized employees and a more robust company bottom line. And it's all about the bottom line at the end. So with that being said, Jahmaal, welcome to the show.
Roger, thanks for having me, man.
You bet. You bet. So for if the listeners don't know, I had the pleasure of being a guest on Jahmaal Show. He's got a great podcast as well. And I wanted to return the favor because I had such a good time in his show. And Jamaal's expertise is something that we need to go deeper on the ThriveMore show about. And it's really around that emotional intelligence piece in the workplace, but also how it affects your personal life. So Jahmaal, can we first start off, the name of your company is Listen Then Speak, which is so brilliantly simple, but just brilliant. Talk to me about how you came up with that name and really what it is that you do.
You got it, Roger. The funny thing about Listen and Speak is that it is not just a brand name, because you hear so much about brand and comms, brand and marketing. It really embodies my life both on and offline. I've got 16 years experience, obviously 12 like right on the ground, with clients, 16 in the field of study. So one thing I was trained with long before I became a certified counselor, in the clinical and in the practicum, is listening. 90% of your work should be listening. Obviously, when you're dealing with root causes, because that's a big thing I do in tackling burnout and stress, helping a person 2x their time, become more efficient, more productive. Really, the big thing is how do we work with you and get you results that are actually tangible, not only psychologically, professionally, but also personally and financially. I have to understand the root cause. And I won't understand the root cause if I don't collect enough data. We both talked ad nauseum just about the coaching industry and how many quacks we have and how many people are just taking money and not getting results. I'm not one who wants to over-deliver on marketing and under-deliver on results. I'd like to under-deliver in messaging and over-deliver on the results I get you so you get the biggest bang for your buck. So Listen Then Speak is long before I speak to you and we begin to speak to those issues and actually develop a plan to get you the results you're looking for that helps you to be more efficient and helps you to tackle these matters that have been in your life for years. I have to be doing a lot more listening. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, 100%. I've trained thousands of salespeople in my career, and the old adage, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so act accordingly. Easier said than done. So what do you do then at Listen and Speak that supports your clients? How do you bring value to your clients? How do you help them improve their bottom line?
Got it. So I work in not just the corporate space, but also the entrepreneurial space. 60% of my clients are women. The other 40% are male. So we have obviously CEOs, VPs, senior leaders, my middle managers. I love y'all because y'all get hail from
both
the
sides,
top and the bottom.
Yeah.
But also individual contributors, because they're still leading. You're leading a whole company. You're leading a team, or you're leading yourself if you're a small business. And so one of the things that come to me, the questions I constantly get asked is, how do I manage myself while managing so much? Either it's at work or in business. And then a common theme, obviously when a prospect calls, they fill out, a form. I'm collecting data like, what brought you to me? And by the time a person has come to me, I'm going to throw a little bit of shade here, but I'm going to be open. They try BetterHelp. They've had years of therapy. They've had other coaches. So I'm always like, what brought you to me? By the time they got to me, they're like, I need some results now.
Yeah.
I'm kind of tired of the surface level cognitive behavioral modify my behavior. Just cheer me on. There's something going on, where I'm getting ready to hit a wall. I've even had people come multiple times where the stress is actually beginning to affect their physical health.
Mm.
I've had clients who actually, I'm like, I thought shingles was something for like when you're in your mid 80s. I
Yeah.
did not know that when your body is that stressed through all the weight that we carry, whether in the corporate or the entrepreneurial arena, they can cause shingles and cause different things to fire off in your body and your gut. And
Yep.
so both individual contributors and CEOs, VPs, and leaders have said, this is affecting my health. This is potentially affecting my marriage. This is affecting the way I manage. And
Yeah.
so I want to collect enough data because one size doesn't fit all. And I'm making sure that I tailor the weeks that I have. And I usually run on a 12-week. We're going to try to maximize your results.
Hmm.
12 weeks to 24 weeks to really isolate the root cause of what is going on and then find out what is the goal mechanism in our time here. And we actually have a whole living document that we share so progress is measured. Like when
Mm.
people say, I just been going to see a person and doing talk therapy, I'm like, well, that's really ineffective. What a waste of your time and revenue.
Yeah.
How do you measure the progress you're making? You're
Yeah.
actually spending money and time with this person. What's the outcome of that? So I want to make sure that outcomes are measured so the person is actually seeing like, oh, this is where I was when I first got with him. And this is where I am now. This is even where my physical health was. And this
Yeah.
is where my health is now. This is where my time was. This is where my revenue was. All these
I
things are
love it.
measured.
Yeah. What gets what gets what's measured gets managed, right? Yeah.
Come on now.
Um, y- and you're formally schooled in this too. So if we were to delineate, hey, the average 21-year-old life coach, which is kind of the running joke, and then your background, you've got formal schooling in counseling. You just later turned it into more of a coaching role than a counseling role. Is that fair?
Yeah, I love the fact that I am a certified counselor because it gives me the chance to operate in the clinical and operate in the coaching, arena. Like if I live in here in DC, if I LPC'd, you are literally locked into this is the only thing that you can do with your client. And if I was just a coach, I wouldn't be able to actually go back. You
Yeah.
think about the issues that prospects come at least to me with, and I'm like, wait, man, we got to go back before we go forward.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I get referred from other coaches. Like if a coach is like, let's say they're a funnel coach, they're like, okay, before you even work with me, you need to work with Jahmaal because you're not going to even succeed in doing the
Yep.
work because your mind isn't there yet. Your body
Yeah.
isn't even there yet. And
Yeah.
so with that, I'm so grateful for the field of study that I come from because it allows me to do both coaching, therapy, and a little bit of clinical work because I love brain neuroplasticity. It's like, what's going on in here that's affecting here and vice
Yeah.
versa.
Super cool. Well, I mean, it shows that you're more qualified, just flat out more qualified than so many people that just, I want to be a coach and they hang a shingle out there. Um, let's dive into EQ, to emotional intelligence. I first became aware of emotional intelligence back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, probably, Daniel Goleman and his work, and have read a lot about, studied a lot about emotional intelligence. But it's something that is core to your practice, to your business, and core to how you help people grow professionally and personally. Can you speak to EQ, kind of what it is? Can you learn it? And how do you work on it?
Got it. I'll do my best to make it simple and bite-sized for your audience. EQ by definition is the ability to manage your own emotions and manage the emotions of others. Let's just stop there and put that on the
Okay.
table. When a client comes to me, one of the phrases that I've coined and trademark is that during this time we're together, we're going to take the NT off management and we're going to manage me. We're going to get you to manage yourself first. And so you learn intelligent and viable ways to manage both up and down. Because even if
Hmm.
you're a CEO, you're answering to a board.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
even if you are a booming entrepreneur, you're answering to your teams, you're
Yep.
answering to your partners, you're answering to other people. And so you need to learn how to first manage yourself because those of us that have a perfectionist background or background in people pleasing or a traumatic background in our childhood, we're used to trying to control others, whether it's through charm, whether it's through burning ourselves out through saying being a yes man, all sorts of different ways. Or even if you have some cultural things, it's like, oh, I'm
Mm.
female or I'm black, brown, or yellow. How do I then manage this? People have to work through that. And a lot of coaches don't have the cultural nuance to even know what their clients need. And so, from an EQ standpoint, how do we then have you manage yourself first? Manage your own emotions, manage your own biology, because your biology informs your psychology. That way you can effectively manage others up and down. And I call it MPP. That's another Jahmaal phrase, mental power positioning. It can take you
Okay.
a very long way.
Okay. So a lot of people will think that by the time you're 30, 40, you're hardwired, you can't change, kind of you are who you are. But the data show that that's not the case with EQ. You can develop it, learn it. It's not like IQ, which you're kind of born with. Can you speak to that and speak to then how can somebody start to develop and build that muscle?
Now you got me wanting to nerd out.
Yeah, go for it. I love it.
I ain't gonna nerd out too much. I don't want to lose your audience. They be like, good night, Jahmaal. Let's just, I won't get with too many scientific facts, but when we're born, we have a certain amount of neurons.
Mhm.
We actually have a lot more. And then they just begin to burn off. Whatever is not used begins to just burn off. Um, Throughout that journey, as we're getting older, it was taught before the 1960s, that after 25, your brain starts dying, which is crazy. Thank God for the research in the brain that show from a neuroplasticity standpoint, well into your late 90s, you can still form brand new thoughts, brand new habits, brand new outlooks, a brand new mindset. And so that's where brain neuroplasticity comes in. So let's roll that back to emotional intelligence. Long after you're 40, men and women, please listen. If you train your brain and unlearn what you have learned for the first 30, 40 years, which takes time, which is why I believe in my coaching practice, we take time, and then retrain those muscles, you then have new neurons and new neural pathways that are being formed. Whatever fires together, wires together, but it takes time. And so with emotional intelligence, it is a retraining process. And it's a time where you have to shut in, and actually make the time and make the investment. But there's no science has even told us, humans can lie, but the
Yeah,
numbers
sure.
don't. That well into your 90s, you can become extremely emotionally intelligent if you're willing to put in the work.
Yeah. That's the key on the end there. Um, so how is EQ, again, being a cornerstone of your practice? How is EQ, how has it, and how have you witnessed it help your clients as they've developed their EQ? How has it helped them in their professional life? And then maybe if you could just give us an example, personally.
You got it. So I was working with a client who is a top senior leader at Amazon. Obviously, I can't mention their name.
Sure.
And when they came to me, I mean, they were pretty broken. They had come from a toxic environment at another Fortune 500 that I'm not going to mention. And we had done the work together for 12 weeks, and it was hard for them because they would do something I call auto accommodating. Now, for those of you in
Hmm.
tech, we know what that means. That's when you turn on the computer and it begins to auto accommodate, all the caches and everything like that, so that you can get a computer that cuts on in about a minute and a
Yeah.
half. Humans, when we lack emotional intelligence, auto accommodating means when I ask you to do something, even as your manager, as your leader, as your entrepreneur, CEO, I'm actually going to do it for you because I have a fear of delegating and I want it to be perfect. I want it done a certain way. Or I can project onto you what I think you are thinking about me and let fear inform the way that I am around you. So I can be the first to get to work, the last to leave because I feel like I need to do more than is required. Literal auto accommodating. It's actually a negative thing, but it's a trauma response. And on the outset, let's say if you are a VP or a senior leader to your manager, that may look good. It's like, man, he or she is so dependable, but they're crushing it, but they're being crushed on the inside.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Yeah.
working with this client, by the time I was done with her, I mean, she had power positioned herself in the company where her team, I mean, because when you give feedback, your team also gives feedback to you, and she manages multiple teams. I mean, the feedback that was coming through her from the last 12 weeks, she was like, I'd never seen this before. And she
Wow.
said to me these words, she says, I've been doing cognitive behavioral therapy for over 20 years, and my growth with you got accelerated in 4 months. This was in our offboarding meeting, and I share with her, because of the work you've done here, There are employees that will not have to heal from you like you had to heal
Mm,
from your managers.
that's
And when I
powerful.
saw her face just flood with tears, it was a moment where it's kind of the intangibles,
Yeah.
the soft skills. It's just like, man, it was truly amazing. But to see the hard data, the actual
Yeah.
corporate data, because corporate doesn't play,
Yeah.
um, that just blessed my heart because she had learned to manage herself, and she was managing up and down in a way where literally in these environments you're very expendable. Like she made herself untouchable.
Yeah. Yeah. And then have you seen this? I'm sure you have. I would just love an example of where this has spilled into somebody's personal life and helped with a primary relationship, or, the way they were dealing with something at home.
Definitely. So I had another coach who came to me. They were actual life coach.
Mm.
um, I used to dub myself a year and a half ago your coach's favorite coach
Yeah.
because some coaches, they said I actually need someone who is trained in the clinical, knows how to counsel, can get to the root causes with me. And when I first got them, they had one enrollment. By the time we were done, they had 12 enrollments. So they
Mm.
more than than 4x,
Yeah.
their enrollment.
Yeah.
So obviously they more than 4x their revenue. But that's just on the money side. On the personal side, it affected their marriage. It affected their gut health. It affected the way that they were as a mom, as a wife. I was just amazed to see, like, because they did the work of, we dealt with them in three phases. I said, I'm going to deal with childhood you, who really has the rose colored glasses on, teenage you that is trying to make sense of things that she doesn't have language for, and adult you who actually has some questions that she cannot answer. So dealing the with her in all those three phases and tailoring, our time together, and then measuring the results, and then watching her business and her practice, but also her marriage and home life grow. And
Mm.
more importantly, the way she was with her siblings. Because sibling relationships, depending on where you fall in the
Yeah.
rung of that, are huge. And she was a middle
Yeah.
child.
This segment is sponsored by Rockbox Fitness Franchising. Take control of your destiny and join the boutique fitness revolution with Rockbox Fitness. If you're ready to make a real impact in your community and own your own business that empowers people to achieve their best life, then Rockbox is the opportunity you've been looking for. They provide comprehensive support from site selection, upfit, training, and turnkey marketing, so you can open your studio with confidence and a strong recurring revenue member base. Visit rockboxfitness.com and click on franchise opportunities to learn more about this exciting venture in the fast-growing boutique fitness industry. It's time to turn your passion for fitness and for business into a thriving venture. Jahmaal, it's funny. I think I was in my late 20s. First time I went to therapy was in my late 20s. It's going through stuff and marriage and blah blah blah. And I remember being in there with a counselor, and I was new to this, and they started asking about my childhood, and I'm like, what the hell do my parents have to do? This has nothing to do with my parents. This is about me today. Like I was so naive to think that childhood and the way you grow up and all that has anything to do with how you are, but it has everything to do with how you interact in the world and how you experience the world, until you consciously take control of that and start to, as you said, rewire your own brain. But it is funny how, like, I don't want to go back to childhood. That has nothing to do with this. No, it has a lot to do with this. And that would actually, I want to ask you a question. With all the people you worked with and helped, I'm 120 some episodes into this podcast, and I've interviewed a lot of founders, a lot of entrepreneurs that are founders. And usually, I've always shared, a founder, and I'm one of those, has to have a teeny bit of narcissism, because you're saying, I can do this better than anybody else, or I wouldn't do it, right? I think I can do this better than the way it's being done, which is okay. A little bit is a little bit healthy, because it makes you take some risks that you may not normally take. But what I found over these 120 interviews, the ones that were with founders, and I'd love your thoughts on it, Jahmaal, is there always seems, almost always, I hate to use the word never always, but almost always, there is trauma, either capital T or lowercase t, but there's trauma in an entrepreneur's childhood or youth that has put a chip on their shoulder, made them like, I'm going to prove somebody wrong, I'm going to prove myself right, whatever it may be. And I would love to get your take and experience talking with the people that you help. And I think even driven, it doesn't have to be a founder. It could be a driven corporate executive. It seems that there's always kind of that trauma in the, in the history books that has made them so driven. I'd love for you to speak to that.
Oh man, I'd love to speak to it because I've worked with a lot of founders.
Yeah.
Again, founders are leaders as well. So,
Yeah.
um, man, if you have listened to my podcast, you'll hear me say it even in my questioning. But I say the very thing that annoys you the most is the problem you created to solve.
Mm,
Um, and the very trauma or darkness of your past forms the very platform that you stand on.
mm,
And so with that being said, a lot of founders, when they've done the shadow work and they've done the work, they see, okay, this is my driver. This is what
yeah.
motivates me. And a lot of times it's to prove myself. I want to prove myself. I can get this done. Like you said, that narcissist within.
Yeah.
And sometimes that need to be needed. Let's keep it a stack here. And so I've seen it even in myself. It's just like, okay, I think I could do that a lot better. Or if I was running the shop, this is how it'll be going. And if you think about when it comes to founders who work in speaking or coaching, whatever it is, sometimes it depends on where they fall in the family. They may either be the oldest, they may be the youngest. And at some point they either felt too responsible for the other siblings or they felt
Yeah.
like they were the one that wasn't heard, you
Yep.
know? And when you dig into that, even if you dig into culturally, I do some contract work outside of my business, and I was sitting with one of the fellow contractors, and we were eating, and he ate so fast. And his name's Tech, and I was like, Tech, why did you eat that so fast? He's Korean, and I didn't know, that in the family, like when they eat, and he was the youngest sibling, you don't get anything if you don't eat. Like once the food comes out. And
Yeah.
so when you listen before you speak and take time to collect the data, you see there are even cultural components into why a person does what they do. It's not all Western, it's not all Anglo-Saxon, it's not all Black, white, or Hispanic. Like there are so many different components. The big part of listening to speak is that we're dealing with you holistically for who you are, not with some, oh, this is my coaching template. Now here's my positive psychology here. That's not
Yeah.
effective. Yes, I said it.
Yeah.
We're actually getting you results that matter to you because one size doesn't fit all. And so we got to bring
Yeah.
you into the gym. Like I can guarantee you, what are you about 6'2"? You look pretty tall.
6'4", 6'4" with good
6'4".
posture.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm 5'10". At my fittest, I'm a 32 waist. I can guarantee if you had a friend that's my height, he'll probably fit pants differently from me because we got different body types. And
Yeah.
so whatever it is, it has to be nuanced to that person's body type. And go back to your question, my goodness, for founders, that trauma response, a lot of times, a lot of businesses you see, this is going to sound really crass, is actually a trauma response. And that's not a bad thing,
Yeah.
you know, because that as long as it's within the confines of, your why, like, why am I doing this? Because that's going to sustain you in the days where you feel like I can't do this anymore. Even when good revenue is coming in, it's like, I don't even want to do this anymore. What was my
Yeah.
purpose for starting this? And when you can go back to the beginning, back to the foundation, and you see, okay, this is why I wanted to do
This all
this.
makes sense.
This is how
Yeah.
I actually take what would have been an unguarded strength and a double weakness and turn it into a superpower.
Mm, that's awesome. That's awesome. So emotional intelligence is really helping us deal with our own emotions and then deal with other people with our, handling our emotions as we deal with other people. How have you seen with your clients technology and everything is so scroll fast, swipe and tech, we're always connected. It's 1,000 pieces of information, a minute coming at us. Have you seen technology impact the practice of emotional intelligence? Or maybe a leading question would be how much more important is it to have emotional intelligence in this day and age with, saturation of technology?
That's a perfect question, Roger. I want to be careful when I say this because both you and I are pretty direct. So
Sure.
sometimes when you're direct, you may cut in a way that's ineffective. But in the advent of where medical, the medical industry has gone and where we're seeing a lot of us without even knowing are on the spectrum of autism, you know,
Hmm.
and may have a certain amount of ADHD or attention deficit disorder and the different parts of neurodiversity. It's I think at least 6 to 11. we understand like why some of us are the way we are, but I want to actually frame of a little bit higher than that. There are some people who are claiming neurodiversity, and you just got TikTok brain. You need to turn off your phone and stop scrolling on YouTube Shorts all day, because it is literally wiring your brain for deficit to attention. It is
Mm,
wiring your brain where you cannot sit still. Let's go back to
mm,
a time when, I'm 40, you're in your 50s. Let's go back to a time when we actually played outside, when
yeah.
you were fully, wherever you were there. You
Yep.
know, the brain functioned differently. So when it
God,
comes
that's a
to
good point.
emotional,
Wherever you were playing as a kid, that's where you were. You were
that's where you were.
100% there. Yeah.
Yeah. A kid could be on a playground down the street out here in DC and literally be talking to someone in Japan,
Yeah.
just because of where technology has brought us. And it's hard, there's a redemptive side to that, but it's also a very destructive side to that.
Sure.
And so when it comes to EQ, EQ requires for you to slow down. It requires for you to actually pause and reflect, and respond. But if you don't do that, if you're not emotionally intelligent, you won't pause and you will react and you may
Yeah.
explode.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the onset of technology has, for those of us that adults from all ages that don't really know how to use it and manage ourselves with it, it is driving us to, I will use a very crass word that may have to get edited out, but mental masturbation. I want it now.
Yeah.
I sent you
Yeah.
that text. Why haven't you text me back? I saw you read that.
Exactly.
I saw that on
Yeah.
read.
It's been
I
4
sent that
minutes. Haven't
email.
replied to my email. What's going on? Yeah.
We want it now.
We're bombarded. It's always, we want something now, 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 now. But emotional intelligence is more of that delayed gratification. Let's make sure that we can make the right choice here at the right pace, which none of us are going at the right pace right now. We're all going full out.
Exactly. We are meant to be maybe going 45 miles per hour, through a quicker residential lane, and we're going at 180 miles per hour. We are
Yeah.
moving at breakneck speed. And because we're moving at breakneck speed, even in our businesses, whether you're an entrepreneur or in the upper part of your career, whether you're middle manager up to CEO, you are burning more bridges than you're building because you're destroying relationships.
Oh, that's powerful. You're burning more bridges because you're burning those relationships, which is everything as a leader.
That's it. Even
Yeah.
in networking one-on-one says this is a relationship. And when you're emotionally intelligent, you understand how to maintain that relationship and also maintain your integrity, because you have the capacity and the ingenuity to listen before you speak and to collect enough data so you make an informed response and not an uninformed reaction.
Yeah. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by ThriveMore Autopilot. The latest data shows a large amount of small to mid-sized business owners are living paycheck to paycheck, and that is not why you started a business in the first place. We all start businesses to create the freedom in our lives that we want and to give us options. But to do that, you need more leads, and you need to turn those prospects into long-term paying customers. Well, the solution is ThriveMore Autopilot. ThriveMore Autopilot is the turnkey solution to take the stress and the hard work out of new customer acquisition, which is the lifeblood of any small business. ThriveMore Autopilot works on your behalf to generate a waterfall of new leads through various channels, to nurture those leads with proprietary AI solutions that mimic human interaction, to sell memberships and help you increase your monthly recurring revenue. And they even provide you coaching and your team coaching on the most effective sales techniques and give you a community of other like-minded business owners. ThriveMore Autopilot is how you scale your business without stress and the relentless phone calls and texts and reach outs to the prospects to get them to show up for that first appointment or to show up to that call. So learn how ThriveMore Autopilot can help you win big by going to thrivemore.ai. That's thrivemore.ai. ThriveMore Autopilot, the strategic partner for small to mid-sized business owners to help you scale and live the life of your dreams. I would love to know, Jahmaal, is there, like, people know about Daniel Goleman and emotional intelligence, and then he's got another follow-up book on that. But is there another book that you would recommend? Doesn't have to be on emotional intelligence, but another book that you would recommend to the listeners that you've read that you think would help them start down that path, start to develop expand upon their own emotional intelligence, build their EQ so that they can have a better career, a happier home life. Anything you'd recommend?
I want to keep it real simple for the listeners.
Yeah.
Um, it's a book some of you guys have probably read, but it's like you have to read it twice to really let it sink in. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People
Mm,
by Stephen Covey is gold.
yeah.
It is really
Yeah.
gold, especially for leaders, for entrepreneurs, for anyone in the upper part of their career, even in the young career. Like it's one of those timeless books that can hit you at every sector if you're
Yeah.
willing to lean into it. It's one of the books that I coach through with my own clients, really digging into the text. Um, that's one of the books that just first thing that comes to mind for me.
Yeah. And it's one of those that you really need to go back and read that book like every 3-4 years, because it does hit you in a different way at different parts of your life.
I'm
Right.
working with a client right now that she read it 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she's a senior leader, and I can't talk about because it's a private sector,
Sure. Sure.
um, but she's military, and she
Mm,
said when I read it, being a 21-year-old, it didn't mean anything to me. She says now going through this with you, it actually has taken on hands and feet, and it's
mm,
affected the way that I lead my teams and also the way I lead on home front with my family.
yeah. I love it. I love it. I've got a VP that works for me, and it's his saying, so it's not mine. I don't want to take credit for it, but he talks about, when you read something and you take it from the head to the heart, really, understand it, believe it, be it, to the feet, from the head to the heart to the feet. Actually do it, put it into action, because so many people love to read, like, oh, that was really good. That was really insightful. They put it down and they go back to acting exactly the way they have. It's actually taking it from the head to the heart to the feet. Couple of last questions, and this one I can't wait for your answer. So, just a kind of a make believe question here, but something, but a real answer. Let's fast forward to the end of your life, your beautiful, rich life, but at the end, at some point, we all kind of pass on. So it's that moment. We're at your funeral. You're looking down from above or wherever, and somebody is reading. A loved one is reading your eulogy. And Jahmaal, they only get 3 words to share to describe you. They don't have to make a sentence or a phrase or anything, but just 3 words that are descriptors. And those descriptors are how they experienced you and how people at that funeral experienced you. What 3 words do you hope they choose?
Oh man, I'll go with some of the common stuff I hear now, which hopefully I can maintain to the end of my life. But
Yeah,
it's wise, um, empathic, and present.
love it. Love it. I love that question, because if we can chase those 3 words our whole life, we'll probably live a darn good existence and have a great
Ooh, mic
impact on
drop.
people. Yeah, mic drop, right? And then second to last thing, because I want to share your digital product and how people can get a hold of you and even work with you. But last question before that, another fun one I can't wait to hear your answer. If I give you a magic wand and you wave that magic wand, Jahmaal, and you can make one material change to the world, and I mean the way people are, the way the world works, just the way the world operates. But you can only make one change. If you wave that tonight, you wave that magic wand, when we wake up tomorrow, how is the world different according to you?
Ooh, why you stopping me with that, man? It's so many differences and changes I would love to see, man. But
Sure.
I would say because at this point, and I think there's nothing new under the sun. If you look over human history, the last 6,000 some odd years, but there would be like no division amongst the ethnicities, man. We are so tribal, and I guess for reasons of survival, we think we need to be that way. Human history doesn't connote a lot of getting along, even within the confines of our own diasporas.
Yep.
So I would say there, if I waved a magic wand, there would be, not those divisions between diaspora and different ethnicities, man. I
Yeah.
just think the world
I
would be a more peaceful place.
I agree. I've had someone else answer similar. He's like, if we've been throwing rocks at each other for 6,000 years, it's probably time we sit down and have a cup of coffee and figure out what our differences are. I'll double down on that. My wife and I were watching some show on Netflix or Prime or something, but it's about about Northern Ireland back in the 70s when the Republican IRA army and really it was Protestant Catholics fighting, killing, bombing. No, I'm sorry, Protestant Irish people, fighting and killing Catholic Irish people. And I looked at my, and they all looked exactly the same, right? It's the faction of religion. They're different. And I looked at my wife sitting on the couch and I said, this is sad because it just shows everyone chooses somebody to hate. Like the only thing they could find different between themselves up there was the faction of religion, of Christianity they chose. Because, there's not a lot of ethnic diversity up there and there's not a lot of, so they chose that. It's just nuts that the human beings will find some difference. And then that's the difference they latch on to. And that's why we can't like each other, just sad. So I agree with you. Hey, let's get off that and on something really positive. And that's, how can people find you? How can they follow you? How can they work with you? And talk a little about the digital product that you have as well too, please.
Thanks for asking, Roger. Man, I've had so much fun with you. One of the easiest ways to find me, if you go on LinkedIn, obviously it's a super professional network for both entrepreneurs and business owners and corporate. Type in Jahmaal. I'm the only one in all of cyberspace that spells my name that way. So I'm very careful about my digital footprint because it's super easy to find me.
Yeah.
So get linked with me on LinkedIn. Make sure if you hit a connection button, like say where you came from, just so I know. And also my website, listenthenSpeak.com, very easy there. And you can just drop something and the automation will hit me. All the emails are answered by me, someone from the team. So we'll definitely be in touch. Those are the two easiest ways to find me in the spaces that I'm active in.
Okay, cool. And then do you have a resource or anything that like what would be the first step in somebody working with you or starting to, learn from you and get help?
Got it. Yeah. For those who have listened today and said, "Oh, I think I want or need to work with that guy," Roger will have in the show notes my Calendly link, and so you can make a direct appointment on there. Just fill out some information, so I get to know, like, hey, what exactly is bringing you to the call today, and we'll talk for 30 some odd minutes and get a feel for if we're a good fit. And if you do fit that description, man, I'd love to get in the trenches with you and get results for you that matter to you, that set you up well going forward.
I love it. I've experienced it to be a very genuine and authentic guy that is really striving to help people and just do the right thing. Like that's how I've experienced you. So I can only imagine working with you is the same way. Jahmaal, thank you so much for coming on today. Like this was really fun to kind of turn the tables and me interview you versus the other way around like last time. And this was cool, brother.
No, thanks for having me. Before we fully close out, man, one thing I want to leave with your
Yeah,
audience
please.
is just a little bit of a primer, because I know some people hear 12 or 24 weeks and it's like, oof, that can be daunting. And I created a mini course because I get the common question: how do you manage yourself while managing so much at work or managing so much with a whole business? Because we understand when you manage a business, you're HR, you're marketing, you're what you're you're all of it, you're OGC, you're everything, you're legal. And so how do you manage yourself and all that? So for that reason, I created a burnout mini course. And it's something that you go through at your own pace, because it takes a deeper look at what's going on in your subconscious mind, and it gives you the tools to save you time, money, and energy. And there's
Okay.
also a whole workbook in there that you can download. There's a cheat code. And it really is a primer to get your mind working in the right direction. And also
Hmm.
you can have a debrief with me, a whole hour-long debrief, once you're done, with that. And so for anyone who is listening to this podcast, actually the discount code is, I think it's Thrive Podcast. Yeah, Thrive
Okay.
Podcast.
Thrive
And
podcast.
yeah,
Okay.
this normally retails in the corporate space for 1,500. And I usually offer it at 197 on different podcasts, but because you guys are listening and because I love Roger and he loves me, I'm offering it for all of his guests at 97. And that's
Wow.
indefinitely. So
That's
indefinitely
steel.
97. When you say Thrive Podcast and you put it in the show notes and put it in the link already, it does all the work for you. I really want to see people win and want to make a career, want to make a commitment to folks having not only career milestones, but also business milestones. But you got to do the work first. Remember, your business grows to the degree that you do.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure you experience that growth from the inside out.
Your business grows at the degree you do. That's That's the quote of the show. I love that. I love that. And $97, that's less than a couple margaritas and Mexican food. Come on. That's a steal. That's an absolute steal to start changing your life. Awesome. Well, brother, thank you for sharing your expertise, and I just love your affect, man. It's awesome. Appreciate you.
Roger, thanks for having me, man.
Thank you for tuning in to the ThriveMore podcast. Don't forget to take a look at the show notes for any of the resources that we mentioned during the podcast. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you have access to the latest and the greatest. You can connect with me on any of the socials at Real Roger Martin. And be sure to check out our website, ThriveMoreBrands.com. There you'll find information on the brands we support and information on franchising. Thanks again for tuning in.